Okay, welcome everyone to the show. Today we are here with the singer and songwriter Greg Amici, whose band Big Honey was on the rise in New York until a vocal injury had him quiet for over a decade. Now he's back with his album Tragic Comic, and we are getting into how he found his way back into music, and we are going to talk about his songwriting. So, Greg, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Melanie. I'm very, very happy to be here. Very happy. Happier than always, than often. I have to tell you, this is a really fascinating show you've got.
But first this, you're right, you pour hours into a song, but do you actually know if the lyrics are good? If you want to write lyrics that move people, join our free Story First songwriting community on School. This is where songwriters come together to find their people and master their songwriting skills when it comes to the craft of writing lyrics that matter. There are no algorithms, just songwriters showing up for each other and their songs. The link and the QR code are on the screen, or tap the link in the description below. It's free to join and we are looking forward to having you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And yeah, I think the best thing we can do in the beginning is actually let you talk first and let you introduce yourself so everyone knows who is Greg Amici.
Yeah, I'm a singer-songwriter based in New Jersey now. I had been a musician, for a singer-songwriter for a long time. With Big Honey, that was one of the bands I was in the 90s and the early 2000s. And we seemed like we were on the verge of maybe something because you still get signed back then. And so we were doing quite well. We did what was then a big festival called the CMJ Music Festival, which was the the College Music Journal Festival. That was big at the time. And I was halfway through my set when I was singing in a lower register. All of a sudden, I started croaking a bit, overcame it. It turned out I had a polyp on my vocal cord, though, and that kept me out of action for 3 months, not even talking, because I was worried about the surgery. Then I had the surgery and no problems. But by the time it was all over, Big Honey was no more because they didn't have time for it. So I went to California. I had an opportunity out there to go out there as a screenwriter and an actor. I went out there and I went through the whole thing where I was in some of the craziest pitch sessions you could imagine. I had a couple things optioned. I got some acting roles, mostly in indie films. Then I came back in 2009, I believe, to this East Coast, went to get my master's in English Lit. And then since then I had given up. I wasn't giving up music, but it was very backburnered. And then in 2019, I was acting in a film written by and directed and starring a guy I knew, as he knew me as a writer and had actually had me write something for him. I told him I acted, got me an audition, I acted in it. And then I said, I do music too. And he said, go ahead, take a crack at it. So I took a crack at it. It didn't make it to the movie. And there were two songs. One was a cover of a 60s song by Bert Summer called Jennifer. And the other was Spin That Ball, which I know you got into. And so the experience with these guys, James Mastro, the guys from Patti Smith's band, some of the greatest musicians around here, it was so thrilling and so much fun that I just decided this is what everything else is now backburnered. I still write and I still act if there's an opportunity, but everything is focused on, I have so many songs I want to get out and so little time to do it. That's my area of concentration. We have the one album done, Tragic Comic, and the next one is about to be mastered. It's called Songs for the Lads to Sing. And a lot of the stuff it's stuff I've compiled a lot of stuff over the years. So, there's a lot to get out before I even have more new stuff, and I'll try to do it simultaneously. So that's where I'm at right now. Tragic Comic was doing very nicely as far as getting radio play, a lot of indie radio, some terrestrial radio. And I was about to tour for it when I tore both my quad muscles, my quad tendons, and in an incident. And so I was basically I'm moving now after being hospitalized or because it happened twice this year, hospitalized or at rehab for most of 26. But I'm getting ready to play out again and just getting ready for more music activity. That's the story in a
That's
nutshell.
in a nutshell. Yeah. Wow. You've been through quite a lot, especially how it all started and then like not being able to do music, but you still pursued creative endeavors. And it's funny to think about it, how it led you back into music. So it's quite a great incident that this yeah, that movie and spin that ball. Hey, I do music too. That's a great story. So yeah,
Yeah.
maybe it was supposed to be that way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It's
yeah,
also, I didn't interrupt. It's also kind of, when you do a song, I mean, if you got the money to do it, you get to get top musicians, you write the song, you record the song, and on some level, you're able to distribute the song. A movie, I have different movies I'd written. I was thinking, oh, maybe I could get financing. I'm not good at that. So that ruled that out. Acting, I don't want to be auditioning for commercials that I don't have no chance of getting. And I had some bizarre experiences in LA with that. So my interest now is sort of geared towards it by circumstances, but also the joy I feel in actually getting something out that I've done as good a job as I could writing, having it produced by James Mastro, my producer, and then using social media and podcasts or whatever it may be to get my stuff out there.
yeah. And a lot more is coming, as we've already heard. So it sounds like all those years that you couldn't like do your music, it's like it's stockpiled, and now it needs to get out there. Like
Mhm.
it's all coming now, like a flood wave.
That's it.
So that's cool to hear. So one thing I wanted to talk about, because you mentioned you're from New Jersey, and from New Jersey, there are actually a lot of great bands, right? We have Springsteen with the Houston Misfits, just to name a few. Also,
Mhm.
my favorite band is also from there, and it's My Chemical Romance.
Yes.
And
Oh, that's an interesting story. Yeah.
oh, you have a story about that? Then tell us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
tell
happened
it.
about around the turn of the century, right? Around 2003, 4, something like that.
Yeah,
And they're
after like Gerard Way, he saw the Twin Towers, how they came down, and that put him into music.
and they're from New Brunswick, right? I
I
believe they're
don't
from New
know.
Brunswick. No?
I
Oh,
don't know the little like I know New Jersey, but that's like
okay. I'm sorry to
so
have to get into the minutia, but I'm
yeah.
friends with Matt Pinfield. I grew up with him. He's he was a VJ on MTV, and he'd taken us to the beautiful day opening show before the tour started. It was a smaller club in New York. And as we're online, people would run up to him because they know who he is and they give him music and stuff. And this woman comes by, she's in her 30s, I guess, and she gets him a tape and she says, my son is going to be really big. He's really great. I love you to hear his stuff. And he took it. He listened to it. So months later, he says, hey, you want to go to a show in New Brunswick? And I said, yeah, sure. He said, remember that lady who told me about how good her kid was? They're playing at whatever it was, Patrick's. I was like, cool. I saw them and I thought they were great. And then they become My Chemical Romance.
Wow.
Yeah.
You've seen their first show.
Yeah.
Wow, and you've been there. Like,
Yeah.
oh
Small
my God.
world.
Now I'm speechless. Like I had a whole interview prepared and now I'm like, oh my God. I want to talk more about that. But
I don't
but
know much more about it than that, but I just
it's
thought that
amazing.
that was so interesting. And I've had seen stuff like that happen with him in the past where, guys I'll meet and he'll say like, oh, you remember that guy? And I'm like, I don't know who he is now. And then I have to look at a video and he's world famous or whatever. So that happens.
Cool.
Yeah.
The thing that I actually wanted to talk about is because like they are very theatrical as well. And then I watched your video to Girl Next Door and you're like standing on that little platform. And
Mhm.
it's also very theatrical. And so my first question to you is actually like, yeah, um, what actually sparked that idea? Like, and also for people who don't know that video, like maybe you can tell them a little bit about like what's it about, like also visually.
Sure. Well, the song itself was, I don't know if we want to get into that, but that was about, briefly, it was about a girl who actually used to work for Matt. Not about her, but it was inspired by her. She was a very nice assistant, young girl, and she kind of inspired me to write a TV show about an aging musician who's championed by a young intern. Turns out her name, Allison, wound up becoming a big player in the world. The girl, Allison Hagendorf, she's now like the known person too in that small world. But I'd written a TV show, a pilot, and just when we were about to get it, out to people, 2001, 9/11 happened. So that was the end of that. I always liked the song though, and so when I did the album, I wanted to put it on there. We did, I thought, a nice version of it. And then when I've been working with the guy who did the album cover and all the inserts and everything, who's great, Mark Jaworski. And I said to Mark, I want to do a video at some point with you. And unlike, I know, like a lot of times I have a lot of input in with these things, but in this one, I just have so much trust in his artistry. I said, you know, do what you want to do. So he calls me that day and I said, well, what song we doing? And he told me, let's do Girl Next Door. So I came in and he kind of developed it as we were there. The clown thing was, and that's only for tragic comic. That was, you know, it's not going to be my thing, but he wanted to go with that. So he did the video and I think that was fantastic. It was supposed to be a lyric video, but I said, don't even bother with the lyrics. Let's just go with the video. So that was the story. We did it in his studio in 5 hours. And I had a great time doing it. He's a genius, Mark Jaworski.
Wow. Yeah, the album art, like everything is like really well done. So it looks very high professional. Also,
Thank
like you're acting on it, like seeming like this puppet on this platform.
It was something.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was
Like,
fun. A lot of fun.
wow. So yeah. Um I would like to go back now a little to the roots of your roots. Like
Mhm.
initially, what got you into songwriting? Because everyone kind of like has their own special story. So what's yours?
Yeah, I was like an athlete. I mean, a jock. That was like my kind of my thing in high school. Got into did some little theater at the end, kind of as a joke, and then you know, I loved rock music. It was like so important to me, and I had sung when I was younger, but I like when you were back in the day, you didn't like you're the one or the other, so I didn't really sing or anything at that point. I started taking some guitar lessons, and once I figured out how to do bar chords, I figured I could actually play. Then I started singing, and then my friends and I decided, like, why don't we do a recording? So we did 3 original songs with some really not great lyrics on my part, and but it was fun. And then I wound up from that point, it kind of took off where was like, all right, I got to write better lyrics than this. And I used to just write the lyrics in some melody lines, but I didn't write the music, the chord progressions. Then when I had no partner to work with at some point, a few years down the line, I decided, well, I got to try both. So that's when I started doing the music as well. But lyrics were always kind of the first thing that came to me. And as I said, it was definitely trial and error because what I was writing as a teenager was not spectacular stuff. And some people think it's cool because it's almost ironic. They're taking it as comedy when I was like, no, I'm serious. You know? So it's pretty funny from that perspective. But that's how it started.
Yeah, that's true. The writing, when we look back at our younger years, what we were writing about, it's like we can laugh about it now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So that actually brings us to a good topic because my show is all about songwriting, as you know,
Yes.
especially about lyrics.
Yes.
And actually, I have to confess, like, prior to this interview, because I
Mhm.
have a school community, right, called Story First Songwriting, we
Yes.
actually looked at every
did.
song on your album.
Oh, I heard the
Like,
first 2.
oh, you did? You
Yeah.
actually like
Oh,
watched
yeah.
that on
Loved
YouTube
it.
already? Oh,
Yeah.
cool. I didn't
Yeah.
know that. Yeah, yeah. We actually like we did that every day. So those 12 songs are already released in the
Wow.
community,
Wow.
just so we can get to know you and your songwriting and
Oh, how cool.
find some patterns, you know? And one thing that I noticed is that you have many characters in your songs. Like I'm specifically now talking about tragic comics where they don't really change as a person. Like many end up like even more stuck than where they already are.
Mm-hmm.
Like they just dig like a deeper hole, like even literally like in
Yeah.
Pumpkin Man.
Yep. Yep.
But
Yep.
we also have like this guy in No Fool who keeps chasing younger woman, and the guy in I'll Be Back. He's still out there for blood. So
Yeah. 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 I know from a storytelling, because I did a lot of screenwriting, that you like to see the character change and something's completely different at the end. Uh, I guess one of the reasons I take the songwriting is I don't feel as pressed to make sure that everything adds up quite like it has to in a screenplay. Although I will honestly say I'm a European film guy. I mean, I sort of like abstract stuff, but I personally, I'm a craft guy. So it's sort of caught in between. You know, there are so many bands that do this nice poetic stuff that really doesn't add up at all. And there are bands that, you know, that's like Springsteen, I guess, for the not even his early stuff, no, but his middle part period, was very, beginning, middle, and end. And I think sometimes there are good twists I put in there. But the thing is, one thing I wrote in one screenplay is I really wanted to show that what life is like, and life in the end is often a big circle. Now that doesn't always make for the best drama, unless you can use both your music and kind of your character's sense of change, even if it winds up back at the start. As long as there's some change, even though it ends up at the beginning for me, I'm okay with it. And also, I don't scrutinize as much as I used to, because you know, you have so many songs in your library. You're like, wow, I don't want to pressure myself that much. But on the other hand, I want to be aware of what's important in a song, and especially when you're talking about like the actual story songwriting. Yeah, that's why I was listening to your critiques, and they're spot on. I mean, that is the way to really do a singer songwriter, to do a story song, which for the most part is what I do. I actually was thinking of doing a little less of that, because interestingly, I said right before this, I had a run, because I was talking to a music supervisor, and music supervisors, I've learned, they really don't want specific names. They don't want specificity. And I don't write to please them, but I was curious to see what songs I have in mind that would fit into that demand. And they're not a lot, because I do write a lot of things specifically. So I don't know. That's kind of interesting, I guess, that demand, and also the purpose of doing something like Spin That Ball. I did that specifically for a movie, that it didn't get in there. But so there are all these other extenuating circumstances. But when it comes down to it, I believe totally what I love best is good story songwriting. And I think you've really nailed it. So.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to go through all of your songs, because I think we all in our community learned something from
Oh,
every song. So it
sure.
was really good to look at it. And it's also what you said about life. Like, I heard it also, you talked about it before in an interview, with like, life is not all about those dramatic changes, right? Or the big events. Sometimes it's about the smaller things. And I think there's also a lot of truth in your songs when you say like, people don't actually change that much, right? That's the truth. People don't
Yeah.
really like change. So they fall back into their patterns
Yeah.
that those have served them before. But we can also see, like, when we actually follow that, for example, in your songs, and people stay that way, those characters, then it serves as a cautionary tale, right? Because we can see how they dig a deeper hole for themselves.
Right.
So that's actually like a good takeaway for audiences to witness this lack of a progression, then, so to say, right? They just fall back.
And sometimes there is. I mean, sometimes people die in the song. So I guess that is there is an end to those. Like well, it definitely in like a line. If you heard that one, that's definitely someone dies in that. Several people die. And I mean, that's why I said tragedy and comedy. But most of my stuff is more like dramedy. It's somewhere in between. But there is that stuff where I like the traditional Shakespeare. As pretentious as it may sound, he had his comedies, his tragedies, and his histories. Somebody dies, it's a tragedy. People live, it's a comedy. But nowadays, it's more of a dramedy for most. But you really don't have that like they used to. And I don't think I've written any history songs quite yet, or I have that haven't been out,
Yes. Dramedy. That's a nice new phrase. I have not heard that before.
Yeah, no, that's what
Yeah.
most of the stuff on TV, got a lot of drama, but you have to have some comedy in it too to keep people
Keep
la-
keep it keep it
laugh
lighter.
somehow.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. You're absolutely right. So we actually like drama is like when you face the emotions, like how they really are, right? And comedy is when you actually not make fun of it, but you present them in a lighter way. So
and
even though it's
yeah,
basically.
yeah, irony. A lot of my sense of humor is ironic, I guess. So sardonic.
I also heard you in an interview say, like, we were talking about those characters, and you actually say that it bugs you that people think that this guy in that song is actually you. Does it really bug you, or is it also like kind of like part of the fun?
Well, it only bugs me if this character is really just. I have some characters that are not good people.
Yeah.
I'm not a serial killer. I mean, I don't want to be, I write dark songs a lot, but I'm not that dark a person. whatever causes that, I think you almost have my creative inner life down better than I do because there's something that there's something going on there that you're aware of that even I'm not, that I actually was like, wow, with Pumpkin Man, I was like, wow. I guess, especially for me, it's a little difficult because that song was written a long time ago. And so I'm going back and I'm thinking, so your insight to that is quite fascinating. But I don't like, no, like no fool. I'm not like an old pervert. And the guy was born in a generation or 10 years before I was. So don't confuse me with that guy either,
Yeah.
So that's why I'm a little defensive about it. There are scenarios that sometimes have influenced what I wrote that are personal. I'll Be Back was out of which is based on the Ulysses, the Odyssey, but it's really came out of a terrible thing I was done by somebody I thought at the time in a love relationship. So it comes out of that, but then I don't want to make it, the characters have to change the names, not only the names, but sort of, I don't want it to be just my story.
Yeah. I also think like every time when we're writing a song, like we can put part of ourselves in there, but in the end, it's like a character that we actually create.
Exactly. And
So
it's diminishing the writer if you say, oh, yeah, I was just telling you, I don't know.
yeah, you are way more than just one song. That's absolutely correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess.
How do you like draw the line, especially when you look at songs that are a lot deeper? Like you're talking about a serial killer, right? I know like Billy Joe also had like this. He has written this one song where it was about like murder in school murder. Like there's one guy going there with a gun, and it was really hard for them to get out of that place again. So how is that for you when you go to those places? How can you like step back from it again?
I have no problem. I mean, it's like acting, there are method actors who actually I am a method actor. And even when I'm going through the process of getting ready for the role and doing the role, even sometimes on the set, I'll try to stay in character. But I mean, the minute it's over, I'm able to jump. I'm not in moods. My mood swings aren't like that. So once I'm finished with the lyrics, which take me a hell of a lot longer than the music does, then I felt like I've crafted something, so I don't feel like, oh, well, I'm emotionally, because I've been able to distance myself from it. So I don't, I feel, it doesn't do any long-term psychological damage to me. If anything, it's just cathartic.
Do you have a tip for other songwriters who are not trained actors, what they can actually do, like how they can put themselves into a song when they write their lyrics, and also how they can step out of it?
Yeah. Be patient. I mean, it is a craft, so I don't and it become more and more this way as I go along. Sometimes you just have an inspiration and you can write it rather quickly. But even if you do, then you still want to hone down and does this make sense? Does that make sense? Especially if it's a story song. So I would say whatever personal experience you come out of, don't just write the whole song. God bless. So many people have done it, write the song and record it that minute. I would say once you take your time with the lyrics, and now I've gotten into the habit because, you don't really want to go back to the well so many times. I write like 6 versions of a verse. And then kind of sometimes I'm combining it. Sometimes but I would say approach it as a craft and don't get caught up in yourself, because sometimes, as in every facet of the arts, if you get too caught up in yourself, you're going to have, I wrote one story, one screenplay once where the guy actually said at the end of it, because it was similar to a real thing that happened to me. He said like, we're going through your journey, but are we really that interested in it? And there is something to that. I mean, if your journey means so much to you, but you have to be aware that you have a universal audience, even though it doesn't have to be that universal, it has to be at least something someone else can relate to in some way. So I would just say, be careful and craft. If you're that good that you can just write genius, watch the Beatles thing on their how they wrote songs. I mean, it's unbelievable when you watch the behind the scenes of that. I forget which album it was, the Get Back album, or whatever, but they had like 3 hours of what went on. I mean, they would just come up with ideas each time that like, just a lyric idea. And well, let's write a song about what's going on in India. And then it became, it became about a woman in California who was, it just made there was there was no theme going into it. I like to go in with themes sometimes if I'm writing from scratch, but other times the theme is there for you if you happen to fall into it, and you should be aware of it anyway. I don't know. That's my silly advice. So I don't know what I'm talking about, but that's what I was.
But you have an approach that's working for you, and that's great. So when you say like you start with a theme, like what incorporates that theme for you?
Um, well, usually it's consistency. Again, it's like if if you're all over the place with what you're writing, you're not able to focus on. There's a couple things. I mean, that's from writers, basic writing. Period. You want to have your plot, your theme, your mood, everything like that, kind of in mind when you do it. And if you forget it, you just kind of let it go and don't pay attention to it. You're not giving the song everything you can really give it, and or at least the possibilities for the song. So it's both inspiration and perspiration, the old cliche. That's it.
And perspiration. Again, something I have not heard before.
Well, in this country, it's not like I'm creating anything that original.
Oh,
that's, that's
okay.
that's a pretty common one.
But your songs are very original.
Thank
So,
you. Thank you.
and also about that songs, I mean, I don't know, like you've seen 2 videos of it already, but like since we have gone through all of them, like some songs like you got right away, like you got like, that's what it's about. Other
Right.
songs, it took me like a couple of like listens to actually like get a sense of what it's really about. So it
Yeah.
actually left me a little wondering. So my question for you is like, what pulls you towards those songs that are more like tongue in cheek or more vague instead of like being a lot clearer on the story or what's really going on?
Kind of what I just said about the Beatles. I mean, I start to question myself sometimes for being too rigid in how I approach things because I see the Beatles are just, tossing things out there and they don't, in the end, it kind of makes sense, but there was no intent with that to begin with. So I try to loosen myself up. And so in those songs, especially if they're humorous or if they have like a Cynthia Come to Me, something like that, which was based on a movie too. But or what inspired me was a movie. It wasn't for a movie. I try to loosen myself up because I am very anal about how I write. I mean, everything's got to be. I'm very much a perfectionist. So in the end, that's got its good points. But I've been writing this Christmas song now for the last 2 years, and I can't seem to get through it unless I have a deadline, and then I can get through it very quickly. So that's important too. Set your own deadlines, I'd say, if you can do it. I can't. I have to have deadlines.
Okay, we can also set a deadline for you. Like we're gonna have you on the show again, like in December, and then you can present the Christmas song. So
Fantastic.
it has
Fantastic.
to be ready by then.
I'll get it done. Now you got me. Now I'm gonna work.
Okay, awesome. Good to hear. Also before we jump into the Q&A, something I wanted to talk about is because when we talk about story first songwriting, so we're going to dive a little more into that. Um, especially with the storytelling, we need to know like who are we writing this song for, because the story can actually carry a very meaningful message to the audience.
Mhm.
And especially a story allows us not to preach something to the audience, but they get the message through the experience.
Right.
Like, for example, with your songs where characters stay stuck, they feel or I get to experience how it feels to stay stuck. And then they can ask themselves, do I actually want that for my life? So
Yeah. Mhm.
when it comes to your songs, your album, or the album that you're writing now, though, especially now, let's talk about Tragic Comic, like the
Mhm.
people who are listening to the show now,
Okay.
and they wonder, like, should I check out the album Tragic Comic and those songs? Like, what would you say? Like, who is it for? Who did you write that album for?
Well, that's an interesting question. I wrote it for people who are into the kind of stuff that I write. I guess, you know, um, it's rock music. In fact, it's basically like modern classic rock. So, I mean, I guess to people more my age would be part of it. I mean, it's great if kids like it because they love the tune or something about it is good. But I'm like it for people who grew up with the Beatles, with Bob Dylan, with Neil Young. That's who I'm writing it for because that's who I am. So I would say that that's the audience I'm trying to speak to. As far as each song goes, who I'm speaking to in the song, that would depend on whether I'm coming in with the, that sort of strategy, whether I'm coming in with first person, second person, third person, that's sort of more of a strategic, like I said, a strategic approach to it. But my audience, well, I look at my numbers too, they're mostly 45 and above, which is what I would expect. My music is not going to be top 40 today. It might have been top 40 in 1990, but it ain't gonna be top 40 today, which is it's fine with me. You know, I'd like a top 40 hit. Don't get me wrong. I'd like that very much, but that ain't gonna happen. So I'm very content with my audience, my genre.
Yeah. Maybe it is gonna happen. After
Oh,
all,
who
you have
knows?
a Christmas song coming up, and you said in an interview you want to write like 20 more albums. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
So chances are,
On the planet.
yeah. So see, like there are a lot of more chances to actually get your top 40 hit. So yeah, thank you
The
so
world
much.
would have to change. The Billboard would have to change a bit, but hey, you don't know because in the '90s that was a lot of sort of '70s stuff. So you never know what the cycle will be next. So I shouldn't rule anything out, I guess.
Yeah,
Or
everything's
if you get in the
possible.
movie, if you get in the movie and all of a sudden that's actually an ideal way to go too.
Yeah. Do you have any plans for promoting your songs also going into sync or?
Yeah, that's what I'm working on now because since I had the injury, I had to stop gigging for months and I won't be able to get back out until maybe August. So I decided to look at things that I can control. And one of them is at least learning more about sync and trying to do sync. And it is a fascinating world. But you really have to, get your head wrapped around it to even understand it because there's terminology. I had never heard of metadata before. I didn't know what
Yeah.
that was. And so now I know the importance of metadata and unfortunately, what you really have to do then is you have to focus on what the guy's looking for and what the show is. And it's interesting to me, but I'm not going to write songs to that. That's where it kind of thing is. I'm going to write my songs. And then if it fits into whatever the little building
Criteria.
blocks they
Yeah.
have, because that's how they do it. Depends this genre they're looking for this genre. So if it fits in that genre, great. But I'm not going to write to it.
Okay, so that's another path that has opened for you. That's great. And for everyone who's listening to the show, like where can people actually find you and your music?
Well, the easiest place to start is gregamici.com, and that's GREGAMICI.com. And that is my link tree to everything. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook Music. I should say that in case anybody wants to, one thing I'll say is the guy that did was about the photos and everything. The guy that did the album cover and the inserts is fantastic. So if people like vinyl, I do encourage them to check out. It's on Bandcamp. And that information would be available through gregamici.com and all my links. I think it's so cool on the vinyl and CD, and because I love CDs, nobody else does, but I do. So, so that I just let people know about that. Otherwise, just I'm on Spotify, I'm on everything, Apple. So, but if you want the links directly, just go to gregamici.com. Then I get a hit too, and it's not bad for my whatever it is that I don't know how these things work. That's why I have social media for it, but God bless him. I don't know.
Okay. So for everyone listening, the link is going to be in the show notes. And yeah, so thank you so much for that interview
My
today,
pleasure.
Greg. It was
Thank you
pleasure.
thank you for teaching me something about my songs. It was fascinating. I look forward to the rest.
It's coming every week
Great.
now. Yeah, thank you so much. And we wish you all the best for your future
Thank you
endeavors.
so much. Thank you.
Oh, there's a lot more going on inside our community of Story First songwriters on School. You can share your own song lyrics. You can follow along what other songwriters do. You get trainings, feedback, and a great community who all support each other. And to join us, just click the link in the description below. We are looking forward to having you.